Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello, hello, hello. And all ships at sea. Okay, what's that from? That's a guy who had a radio show like in the 30s or 40s. Is that Walter Winchell? Who used to say, "Hello, America and all ships at sea," or something? Not that, and I ain't aging. Not that I remember hearing it. I just know that from reading a lot, which is what I do. It is Walter Winchell. Well, see, I was just telling Stephen my brain is gone, and it's still there, but that's the problem. And you hear this about aging brains, that they remember back. I remember I remember Walter Winchell saying something I never heard him say, but that I know from my childhood. And I can't remember names of people in the news that I, am fully cognizant of their histories, their stories. I could pick them out of a lineup. But I can't do that. Okay. Well, it's another day. What's the body count up to for the women accusing the creep, the mall creep? 9? Yeah, 9, I thought. Yeah. God, what a creep! Yike! Oh. Okay, so here's another indication that I often rail against people now who don't get a joke or satire. Many of the time that I've shared an Onion article, and I used to, back in the day on the radio, I would say, "Oh, this just in," and I would read an Onion article, and 90% of people would fall for it. I mean, just because I was saying it and just in and doing it straight. And I think increasingly we, in this era of fake news, really don't know anymore if people are pulling our legs or actually stating truth. When reality, a.k.a. Donald Trump and Roger Moore, you see what I mean? When reality appears to be an SNL comedy sketch, it becomes very difficult to sometimes parse it. Anyway, so I'm embarrassed. I thought, Josh, I'm talking to one of you, Josh, I thought you were probably making a joke, but I swear I didn't know. This is what happened. Josh emails me yesterday and said this. "Hi, Lynn. I caught your Tuesday show about halfway through. I heard you and your sister mention how much you despise Greeks. I'm appalled. I'm disappointed that you guys can despise an entire nationality. If it weren't for the Greeks, there'd be no democracy or philosophy or Western civilization." And I read that and thought, come on. That's a joke, right? But I swear I didn't. I decided it wasn't. I don't know why. So I wrote him back, "Josh, we were talking about fraternities and sororities, not Greece or Greeks." And then today I got what I was afraid I would get. The return message from Josh. "I know, just kidding." Right. So I didn't get it. I didn't get your joke. That's what emoticons are for, or emojis, or whatever. You just, because if you mean it tongue in cheek, then put a friggin' little round face with his tongue in his cheek next to it, so that we know. God, we're having such trouble communicating with each other. And you recall that yesterday Mike in D.C. tried to call and was going in and coming out, and we just said goodbye. No, Stephen saying, you remembered his name. I'm looking at it right here. That's it. No, because he emailed me later and said, here's what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say is, I think Democrats, Mike said, vote for people who make them feel good. It's like a purity test. If you don't pass a certain litmus test, then I'm not going to feel good about you, so I can't vote for you. Make no mistake, he said, Republicans don't vote like that. They vote to win. It's all that matters to them. We are the stupid ones. I agree with you. I agree with you. They get it. They understand what's at stake. They hold their nose and vote for a Roy Moore. They hold their nose and vote for these disgusting human beings. They want to win. They want power. And we're so wishy-washy. God dang it. I really, I don't know. So that was some cleanup from yesterday. Okay. Want to go a little local here for a second. Wow. Front page. The Post-Gazette says this. Ex-police sergeant, that's a Pittsburgh police officer, sentenced to 27 months in jail for excessive force. Wow. Finally convicted a police officer. Here's the rub. He didn't kill anybody either. He did not kill anybody. He just beat up a drunk. He beat up a drunk outside of Hinesfield. 27 months for beating up a drunk. Wow. I guess when I looked at this white cop who's on his way to prison, I couldn't help but think, whatever happened to those cops who beat Jordan Miles senseless? Jordan Miles, who was not drunk, was minding his own business, was on his way walking to his grandmother's house. Whatever happened to them? Whatever happened to the cops who shot Leon Ford, who had done nothing? Nothing. They stopped him thinking he was somebody else. They stopped him for the usual, driving while black, I think. Driving while black. And then they mistook him for somebody that was wanted by the police. He's now paralyzed. A wonderful young man. Both young black men. Both minding their own business. Both accosted by Pittsburgh police. And they get no justice. The mistake this cop made, Stephen Matakovich, was he didn't beat up a black guy. Big mistake. You beat up a drunken white kid, you're going to jail for over 2 years. Yeah, there was video. But, of course, there's been video in a lot of other incidents involving cops and unarmed, sober, black men. Doesn't mean a thing. So, white male privilege asserts itself again. So, you white guys, feel assured that you can you can receive justice in our court system if a cop violates your civil rights. That's something that black guys can't expect at all. Quite the opposite. I mean, how does that not... I actually think 27 months is excessive. My God, if they let these cops go all the time for killing people. I'm not aware the drunken person he beat up is in a wheelchair, suffered any lingering injuries that plague him to this day. Wow, he's going to jail. I am stunned. Well, I guess he should. He's an idiot. He didn't pick his victim right. Stupid. Stupid. Over 2 years in jail for you, idiot. Because you know the rules, and you screwed them up. You can do that to black people. You cannot do that to white people. I wonder how Leon Ford feels looking at that. I wonder how Jordan Miles feels. His life was upended. Jesus. Okay. That's all I got on that. But it totally blew me away. I have not talked about the Republican tax bill because, for one thing, who the hell really knows what it is? They just keep pulling things out and putting things in, trying to get that senator, this representative. It is so extraordinarily, shamelessly a dereliction of their duty and their oaths. A tax measure is probably one of the most consequential pieces of legislation because it has a huge impact on everybody. And they're doing this as they've done everything, in secret, without any effort to explain, to allow CBO scoring, anything. Just ram this baby through so we can get our donors off our backs. That's it. So we can get those donors off our backs. What do you think they gave us all that money for? They gave us that money to cut their taxes. That's your government. Wow. We have a call. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing? Hey, Lynn, did you happen to see that Ellie Velshi and that Stephanie Rule?
Yes.
Yes. Wasn't that something?
It was, I was in my car, I was listening to it, and I thought, what the what was it, really? Yeah. What was he trying to say? Well, you, who don't seem quite American, seem like you're clearly from some kind of a, might be a Muslim. Canadian, might be a Muslim with a name like Ali Velshi, whatever the hell that is. He was trying to suggest that his parents probably would arrange a marriage for him often to an 8-year-old. Is that where he was going?
Yeah, that was where he's going. These guys are something else. Unbelievable.
They're racists. They're racists and xenophobes, and they're ignorant as hell. And that's the world they live in. That's the world they live in. And they want to preserve that wonderful world. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And I thought what was even more interesting is how she's the one who said, what? The guy, he just sat there.
Yeah, he was like, he didn't know where he was going with it.
Well.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But that was
Okay,
what? That
then
was
that's
Roy
all.
Moore. Yeah, thank you. For those of you who didn't
Okay,
see,
thank you.
Yeah, for those of you who didn't see it, this was on MSNBC. If I heard it after I left here, it was like, I don't know. I think that's when I heard it, maybe around noon. And they're interviewing Roy Moore's personal attorney. And this guy, beyond belief, he was sort of trying to dismiss that. He was saying, well, it's culturally different. I think he was trying to say that here in the South, 14-year-old girls in a lot of pockets in the South that in our culture, that's even if you're related to them, don't make much difference. And then he thought he saw an opening to gain common ground because there was this guy named Ali Velshi, who looks ethnic. Did I ever tell you what my agent said to me millions of years ago when she was shopping me around to other television markets? She said, Lynn, I can sell you anywhere, but I can't sell you in the South. And I said, not that I'd want to go to the South, I assure you, but why would that be? And she said, well, in broadcast lingo, you would be said to be too ethnic. So that was in the 80s. Too ethnic meant Jew. Yeah. Can't sell you in the South. Well, fine and dandy. I avoid the South myself. And I'm sorry for those of you who live in it. I'd be homeless before I'd go live there. So the tax plan, Jesus H. I was looking at it. I mean, not. I was reading about it. And it really is it's just mind-blowing. Again, the word shameless. The absolute overt shamelessness of Republicans. Quite openly taking money from children, from sick people, from elderly people, so that they can give billions and billions in tax breaks to the billionaires like they need it. All right? That's what's going on here. Like going to the mat to eliminate the estate tax, or as they brilliantly branded it, the death tax. This is a tax that will never bother you, never bother me, never bother anybody probably you even know. This is a tax that hits, let me see if I have this right, 1/5 of the top 1% of the richest Americans. So even if you might be a multimillionaire, it will not hit you. It only hits literally about 5,000 Americans. And they're going to the mat for those guys because those guys share their wealth with the Republicans. It's how they pay for all the noxious advertising they subject you to while they're running for office. And yet, at the same time, do you know these jerks have still not reinstituted the CHIP program, which gave insurance to, I believe, over 9 million children in this country? No, can't get around to that. Can't find the money for it. And now, of course, added to their tax bill, they're trying to get rid of the individual mandate, meaning that is how Obamacare gets funded, essentially, pulling in younger and healthier people and saying, if you don't buy, a modicum of insurance, we're gonna tax you, we're gonna penalize you, and because that's how the whole system works. And so they're going to get rid of that to help take down Obamacare. And that will result, according to all estimates of anybody who understands anything in this bill, and that does include the Congressional Budget Office, who says that will throw about 13 million Americans out of the insurance pool. People, many of whom had not had insurance before, will, if this tax bill passes, lose their insurance. Nicholas Kristof says, yeah, right, but so what's the big deal? The United States already has an infant mortality rate twice that of South Korea. American women are already 5 times as likely to die in pregnancy as a British woman. And remember, the British woman is subjected to that communistic kind of national health insurance. But she has a much better chance of surviving a pregnancy than an American woman, especially a poor American woman. Kristof says, hey, about the CHIP program. If American infants really want health care, they'll pick themselves up by their booty straps and waddle over to the nearest emergency room or something. Because Republicans understand that they can't do everything for everybody. We got to make hard choices. You got to, do triage, as my sister said the other day. And Congress gets it, that children are resilient and can look after themselves. So you got to focus on the urgent needs of the people who really need the help, billionaires. This, by the way, is the wealthiest Congress we have ever had. Most members are minimally millionaires. Most. So much for the runny-nosed little snot-faced kids. Make way for gifts to the likes of Mnuchin, who was seen holding up those bills at the Treasury with his scuzzbaggy wife looking on. Gah. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell recently told a bunch of CEOs that cutting this individual mandate out of Obamacare would save the government $330 billion over 10 years. And I suppose they all cheered. And then McConnell says, and those savings will allow us to make the tax cuts we're giving to you permanent. So, that's the deal. We take health care away from 13 million Americans so we can make these tax cuts to you billionaires in perpetuity. Shameless. Oh, by the way, the tax cuts that they're touting are in the tax bill for you, middle-class people. Those ain't in perpetuity. Those are for a few years, and then they're going to pull the rug out from under your feet. And people elect them. People elect them. The very people they screw right, left, and center elect them. Which shows what? No, not how stupid they are. How stupid Democrats are. That's what it shows. We keep saying, how stupid are those people? Look in the mirror. Obviously, Democrats don't have a clue how to talk to these people respectfully. What subjects to maybe leave aside while talking to these people. What things to... I am sorry. If you're constantly losing, and we are, and have been for a long time. Because people vote for people who then turn around and screw them. And then they vote for them again and again and again. They'd rather do that than vote for a Democrat. Then you tell me if Democrats aren't doing something wrong. Oh, and we don't fund public education much at all. So much so that, I remember the first time I heard a story about how a teacher in a classroom somewhere actually went out and from her own pocket bought necessary school supplies for her students. Hundreds of dollars she spent. And she was hardly alone. That was happening a lot. So I was stunned by that. And you know what the Republicans are doing in this tax bill of theirs? It used to be that if you were a teacher and you did purchase school supplies, you could deduct up to a whole $250 the cost on your income tax. That's gone. They will not let a school teacher who's taken money out of her own pocket to buy school supplies deduct that measly $250. But they will move heaven and earth to keep deductions that allow billionaires to escape taxation on their obscene wealth. If that's not shameless, nothing. What the heck is? Seriously, what the hell is? Speaking of wealth, did you see what that supposed Leonardo da Vinci painting sold for yesterday? They found this thing. It hadn't been, and it's not quite, the provenance is not quite certain. It looks like maybe he did much of it, but maybe his students were fooling with it too, and it's in horrible condition, and it's not much of a picture. It's a picture of Jesus staring straight at you. It went for almost $250 million. $500 million. $450 million. Man. Them billionaires. There's lots of them, When this thing was discovered, essentially, in 2005, it was found at a garage sale. Well, not really, an estate sale. 2005, at the estate sale, it sold for $10,000. And now, a little over 10 years later, $450 million. I wonder what Jesus would think that his picture was worth that kind of money. And somebody suggested something from the Gospel of Luke to give us a little bit of a hint. Because supposedly Jesus said, this is the man in the $450 million portrait, he said, "Blessed are ye that hunger now, for ye shall be filled. But woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation." Speaking of Jesus quotes, I got one here that I need somebody to explain because I have never seen this before. And it blew my mind. It reminded me of something that happened to me back in the 60s when I was a young freshman at Northwestern University and swept up in all of the social tumult of the time. going to anti-war rallies, dealing with all kinds of issues. In loco parentis was a biggie. Do you know what that means? I don't, because it's Latin, but I think it means in lieu of parents, essentially. And that the way universities worked at the time was in loco parentis. They acted as your parents. So they could set all kinds of rules for you and tell girls they had to be in their locked dorm rooms at this time. And there was a lot that we did fighting that in loco parentis. But I remember somebody told me that there's this organization called Students for the Democratic Society, and there's a meeting tonight. You want to go? I said, yeah. Oh, that was SDS, founded in part by Tom Hayden. It was an SDS meeting. Would have been 1967, probably. And I go to that meeting. And I remember those guys standing up, and I was totally into what they were saying. They were full of passion. And then one of them said, so if you're not able to identify the enemy, you're no good to us. If you're not able to identify the enemy that is your mother, your father, then you're no good to us. And at the time, I got to tell you, my parents and I had a prickly relationship. But I heard that. My parents are the enemy? Even in my still adolescent rage, I knew they were two pretty damn good human beings. What do you mean they're the enemy? And that was the last SCS meeting I went to. And that brings me to this biblical quote. It's in a piece in today's New York Times written by an evangelical, William Brubaker of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And he is ashamed of his fellow evangelicals, and he is ashamed of Roy Moore, and he is obviously angry at them for hiding behind Christianity. And he quotes Jesus as saying this. This is something I never heard before, and it blew me away. It reminded me of the SDS meeting. Okay, here we go. Whoever comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Jesus! What? You can't be my disciple if you don't hate your mother, your father, your wife, your sisters, your brothers, your own life? Now, I understand where it's going, I suppose. You have to turn yourself totally, I guess, over to me and me alone, which, frankly, if I had been an acolyte of this guy and he said that, I would have done what I did in the SDS meeting. I would have walked out. I've never seen that quote before. You want to see it? No. Unbelievable. Let's get to your emails, guys. Dorothea writes, Republicans may vote, as you say, to win, but success without honor is an unseasoned dish. Yeah, well, but Dorothea, I'm not saying we have to be sons of bitches. I'm saying we've got to understand what an election is. Like I was ranting about Fetterman yesterday. He single-handedly, with his own hubris and his entry into that Democratic primary cost us a Senate seat. That's the kind of thing. And then all the Democrats around here, oh, John Fetterman. And they vote for him instead of Sestak, who they would have voted for in large part. And thus, Sestak goes down, Fetterman never had a chance, and we get Katie McGinty, who, as far as I know, has never won anything. Has she? Not a thing. Never won elected office. She's a loser. She was a loser. And that's who they wanted, the Democrats. That's what I'm talking about. That kind of stupidity. Back to Dorothea. Having an immature schoolyard bully as a rubber stamp president is disgraceful, and I wonder how they sleep at night. But they do. I mean, they do. They sleep just fine. My father would always say honor above all things. Sounds like something my dad would say too. And Dorothea says winning without honor is not winning. It's not dishonorable to win. It's not dishonorable to figure out who the better candidate is if they're carrying your flag. I'm not talking about voting for a child molester. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about understanding which horse can win the race and putting your money and your vote on it if it's carrying your colors. Chuck writes, I saw Stephanie Ruhl's interview with Roy Moore's attorney, Trenton Garman. You had played one of those robocalls during the show yesterday. And yes, he mentioned those robocalls. You're right. Not that there was anything wrong with them. He said, well, you know, there are robocalls out there asking people, women, to come forward, and they are offering to pay them. And he was talking about that totally manufactured. So this is how they shamelessly spread this shit. Ruhl denied that the robocalls existed and accused Garman of making it up. I didn't think she was strong enough when she took him on about that. But her head was maybe still spinning from the, whatever, the other thing. That's the problem. They just keep throwing this crap at us, and it's really hard to parry everything. Also, she asked Garman if he'd be okay with a 30-year-old man dating his teenage daughters, and of course he said no. But he said he didn't know his wife's age when he started dating her, arguing that she could have been in her teens and he wouldn't have known it. It's bullshit. Unbelievable. Mike writes, they sleep at night. Instead of counting sheep, they count their money. This is something Fetterman said, again, showing his ambition. He doesn't want to be lieutenant governor. He wants to use it as his next platform. Obviously, Fetterman said, it's a backup position. Is this what he said? Yeah. Obviously, it's a backup position to the governor first, but I would also be using it as a bully pulpit for the issues I care about. The forgotten places in Pennsylvania, the opioid crisis. But it's hard to ignore Pat Toomey and what he's talking about ahead of 2022. So he thinks he's going to take on Toomey in 2022. I don't know. Oh, there's a funny piece in the Wall Street Journal today about, remember when you used to have a question about, I wonder how, and blah, blah, and you could call the library and you could call a librarian. There'd be like a research librarian who could ask any question, and they would find the answer for you. And you would think in this age of Google and the internet that they don't do that. Oh, they do. And they specifically talk about a lot of libraries around here that still employ people that you can call and ask very basic questions. Like a librarian here in Pittsburgh was asked recently during the World Series, could you tell me who the Dodgers are, who's pitching for the Dodgers tonight? Can you imagine in this day and age somebody calling a library to ask that question? Incredible. Here's some of the other questions. People call for phone numbers. People call for weather forecasts, for recipes. I'd lose my mind. A Sacramento librarian said one woman recently woke up with a red blotch on her skin and wanted to know if it was in the shape of any meaningful symbol. And I guess these librarians never laugh at anybody, so it says he offered her some books on symbology. Well, you can page through this and see if it looks anything like the blotch. Here is Sarah McGowan, a librarian in Mount Lebanon. She was asked by a woman to help figure out whether her former husband was dead. That's funny. Here's another one. Mary Phillips was asked, how much do clouds weigh? That's an interesting question. It says here that these librarians absolutely pay attention and respect anybody's privacy. And when someone asks the Pittsburgh Library how to build a guillotine, the librarian emailed diagrams and did not ask any questions. Oh, Jesus. If they'd said, how do I build a bomb, they would have done the same, I guess. No questions asked. You want a bomb? Here's how you do it. We have a caller. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, I used to be a regular caller to Telefax, that number at Pitt. They used to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? It was the Pitt used to have a number like that too. It was 624 fact, I believe. You could call and ask them any question.
Really?
And I used to call them, and they would ask them questions, and it would take them a month to get back to me sometimes. And a lot of those questions you can't. There are lots of questions that you can't Google. Like the one I remember asking them was, how many people in Lawrence County are on? I think it was SSI. How would you Google that? You'd spend months on Google as the average person trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so they actually bother to go through all the reference. Yeah, they will do that. And according to this article, they still do.
And anybody that remembers, you think about all that stuff that used to be very useful. Think about going through the card catalog and seeing the card next to the one you wanted.
That's right.
And thinking about, you can't do that with a digital, because it's as ridiculous. You know, when you go on Amazon and search for something or whatever, and the only thing that it suggests to you are a bunch of stuff you don't want or never want, and then you see these suggested ads for the next 6 months that are the thing you already bought. So how is that digital stuff useful? I don't understand it. But so I miss those days.
I know.
There's a lot of
It occurs to me that when you're saying that, there are younger people saying, "What's he talking about? What's a card catalog?"
Right. And so in my profession, you used to use these, you still do, because a lot of this stuff is not digitized, but you go through these old reference books from the 1800s.
Yeah.
And you find all these references that there's no digital comparison, that you cannot find it on anything digital to this day. you'll find it's similar to the card catalog, but they're these old reference books. I don't know if you remember. There used to be those books for searching through magazines and things like that. There would be books that compiled all of the references in print publications. I can't remember what those were called, but they all did the same thing.
Huh.
And there's Google and all these library search things. Some of them get close, but none of them are the same. And even if they get close, they're only finding things very close to what you were searching for. And the stuff that's kind of in the next layer out that is still very useful, they don't find them for you at all. I don't even know if any of this makes sense. But
yeah, well, Google does not prevent any of us from doing it the old-fashioned way, right?
Well, I don't know what those. I think at the Carnegie, those card catalogs are behind the scenes now, so you can't get to them. But yeah, the book there's a book that I'm referring to called the Zoological Record, which they keep the record of every description of a scientific species. And I think they stopped producing those too, but I could be wrong because I haven't tried to use that like a recent one. I've gone and used the copies of that from the 1800s, but I'm not sure if they still produce that or not. So we might be prevented from. It's the same as it seems analogous to local newspapers going out of existence. How do you get local news? So you can Google all you want, even if there is a local newspaper. You can Google till the end of time, and if they take those articles offline, or if Google doesn't catalog them,
right,
you can't find
it's
them.
Gone.
So
they don't put them on. They don't put them on microfiche anymore.
I don't think so. I don't think libraries keep those anymore. The readers, even if they did produce those, the library wouldn't be able to afford it. So in the age of information, there are these pockets of information which have become inaccessible. Unless a librarian calls in and says I'm wrong. I don't know, which I very well could be, but I try to search on some of the local newspapers up in northern Pennsylvania, and you can't find anything.
Wow. Well. So anyway,
I'm the old curmudgeon still.
Yeah, that's okay. That's totally cool. Hey, thank you for all that.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Chuck says, Lynn, looked up your question about the Bible verse regarding if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, blah, blah, blah. And here's the general consensus. Well, they'll figure out how to spin anything, right? So obviously you got to spin that baby because on the surface it seems pretty brutal. So Chuck says, here's how they spin it. To fully understand Christ's meaning here, the meaning of the Greek word translated hate must be examined. In this verse, the original Greek word is misio, meaning to love less. Therefore, Christ is saying that anyone following him, making a commitment to the Christian way of life, must love him more than family and friends and even life itself. I still find that off-putting. But yeah, they always then go to in the original Arabic or in the Aramaic or in the Greek, that meant this and this meant that. Just a bunch of hooey. Sorry, guys, but it's fucking hooey. Mark writes, well, you just shot a big hole in my plan for Middle East peace. My idea was to give the Jewish people the state of Alabama as the site of the new Jewish state. Israel has had neighbors like Rand Paul for 70 years, and I thought a new location might help. Alabama has holy sites like the Boll Weevil statue and Old Hickory House. But if you are too ethnic, guess back to the drawing boards. I watched a portion of the Senate markup of the tax bill. Chairman Orrin Hatch seemed absolutely lost. He just kept saying, this is something we have to get done now. They're just ramming it through. Consequences be damned. They are so extraordinarily irresponsible. All they do is represent those billionaires. That's all they are about. If they really want to help middle-class folks, says Mark, how about starting by not taxing Social Security? This is from the Pitt News. Someone at Pitt once wanted to know how many Barack Obamas could fit inside the sun. What? And somebody answered him. A guy who works at what's called Telefact, which the caller brought up. So the guy who answered said, well, we took their contact information and told them we'd call back, and then we estimated the mass of Barack Obama and the mass of the sun, and, well, we worked it out. I wonder what the answer is. What kind of stupidity? I always hate those things. So if you stacked all the Cheerios that have ever been eaten one on one, they could go all the way to the sun, orbit it a number of times, come back to Earth, and drop back into the... I don't know. It's just bullshit. Yeah, but that is... Telefact is a free student-run telephone hotline that operated until 2013. It's gone. So it's gone. Okay, so it was initially funded as a... Well, never mind. We don't need all this. Telefact's former employers say it was the best job on campus. It was Google before Google. Can't imagine. That would have been fun. Yeah, each one sent you off on a little, a little adventure. It's like a scavenger hunt. That would be cool. Hey, guys, I want to remind you tonight, if you don't have anything to do and you need some laughs, who the hell doesn't need some laughs? This brilliant character named Randy Rainbow is doing a show to benefit Planned Parenthood at the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, in Squirrel Hill tonight at 7. And the last I saw, because I will be there, the last I saw, there were still some seats available. I think about 50 seats were still available. So if you'd like to treat yourself, and believe me, you will laugh, then just go over to the Planned Parenthood website here in Pittsburgh, Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania. Okay? And you can buy the tickets online. Oh, yeah, the Steelers. You know what? You'll see almost all the game if you're into that mayhem. Okay? So the show will be over by, a little after 8. The game hasn't even started. So it's a nice early night. And laughter guaranteed. One of the subjects I'd like to talk about, actually, I've been wanting to talk about this for the last few days. Something always seems to intervene, but I want to talk. We got to talk about this. We got to talk about, can we appreciate, enjoy the work of a person who has behaved in some deplorable fashion? It's a classic. It's just saying. There are people now saying, I will never go to another Harvey Weinstein-produced movie. Well, to me, that's ridiculous, frankly. Or I will never be able to watch anything Louis C.K. ever did. Or I can't watch, anything Kevin Spacey was in. Or I can't. And we need to talk about that. We need to separate art from the artist. We need to talk about how this kind of thing plays out. We really do. I mean, if you start looking at the lives of brilliant musicians, authors, poets, painters, I mean, guys, some of these people were loathsome. They were loathsome. And in that strange twist of fate, these loathsome beings produced beauty, produced great art, produced extraordinary music. So are we to trash the art because the vessel which gave rise to it was corrupt? I'm tipping my hand here, I guess. But I really would like to have a more serious discussion about that. Because it has, I mean, I'm not, I go both ways actually on it. There are people who I know to be SOBs, and I literally now just hate them so much that I have difficulty enjoying their work. And it's a lot of authors. But for a Jew, if your thing is, if they were anti-Semites, am I going to? Well, if you do that, if being an anti-Semite is the thing that would turn you off, then you're not going to be able to access almost the entire Western canon of literature, of music, poetry, art. They all were. They were racist. They were anti-Semites. A lot of them were, pedophiles. They were, yeah. So I think the reality is that great art is sometimes produced by horrible, horrible people. I think often, because I think for some reason, people with these gifts, often because of the gift, they are not like regular people. And often other parts of them are not as developed, perhaps, as somebody who doesn't have this gift that or takes them. I don't know. I can't imagine what the hell it is. But if I would only read or enjoy or watch or listen to stuff created by people who would have respected me as a person, then I'm not going to have much I'm going to be able to access, I think. That's my bet. But so when it plops itself down in real time, like Mel Gibson or Woody Allen or Louis C.K. or Kevin Spacey, when it does that in real time, it sometimes seems way too close, and we're more likely to recoil. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that now that I've babbled and pretty much, as I said, tipped my hand. I hope I see some of you tonight. JCC, 7P. Be there, be square. And I don't know about you, but man, I need some laughs. I really do. So, see you tomorrow, huh? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live. Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.